Today's computers can take you through the entire music production process without even having to pick up an instrument or record anything. Drums, synths, and instruments can all be programmed in exactly how you want them to with just a simple click of the mouse. But keeping everything in the box or in our computer has taken away an organic element from our music. With the precise programming and processing in our DAWs, our mixes can easily sound lifeless, robotic, and sterile. My name is Daniel with Envato Tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 tips for creating a more organic mix. So let's get into the DAW. This brings us to tip number 1, and that is to record in your automation. Automation is what breathes life into our tracks and keeps the song evolving. Whether that be the automation of a cutoff filter on a synth, the automation of a dry wet knob on a reverb during a buildup, or a simple automation of volume going from section to section. Every DAW will have a section for you to draw in your desired automation. What most producers will do is draw in perfectly straight lines when automating. While this may get the movement that you are looking for, it will often lead to a robotic-like movement. By the time you finish your song, you will have plenty of automation going in your track. And if all of these are straight lines, then all the movement in your track will sound robotic. To give our track the organic movement that we want, we can record in our automation instead of drawing in our straight lines. Recording in our automation will capture every little movement that we make when adjusting our parameter, making the automation flow freely. In Ableton, all we have to do to record our automations is click the automation arm button on the top of the DAW and then click record and change whatever parameter we would like to automate. Here I have a piano type synth sample, and I'm going to record in low pass filter automation from an auto filter. Let's first have a listen to our sample. So now let's record in our filter cutoff automation to breathe a little more life into this automation. As you can see, the automation was recorded from the movement that we had made with our mouse on the filter frequency, and it has recorded our automation in detail. Now let's have a listen to the difference between a linear automation and the recorded in automation. First, let's listen to the linear automation where we just have a straight line automating the cutoff or filter frequency. While we can hear the cutoff filter movement, it sounds rather stale. And now let's listen to the recorded in automation that we have. As you can hear, the recorded in automation gives the sound a bit more character and interest than simply drawing in a straight line, which will in turn give your mix a more organic feel. So the next time you are adding in automation, go ahead and click the record button. The second tip for creating a more organic mix is to add in ambience beds to your track. When it comes to music production, the devil is in the details. Creating a full and organic mix is about adding layers of sounds that have movement. Adding in any ambient bed, sustained Foley sample, such as a forest recording or recording of the beach, will add life and dimension to your mix. The key here is to mix in the ambience at a very low volume so you can't really hear it when it is playing, but you notice that it is missing when it is not playing. For our example, we are going to add in a vinyl noise sample. and a hum Foley sound. First, let's mix in the vinyl noise sample. Once again, we want this to be very low in the mix. Let's hear the synth piano progression with and without the vinyl sample. Without. Now with. As you can hear, there's a little bit of added character to our synth piano progression. Again, a little goes a long way here. Now let's add in the hum ambience. Without the hum. Now with. The track now sounds a bit fuller and more natural sounding, giving us a nice organic background. In the final tip number 3, is to add modulation effects to delay and reverb send channels. Every song that you create will contain reverb and delay at some point, and setting up return and send channels for these effects is a great way to save CPU and give your sounds a consistent space. In the real world, delays and reverbs never happen in a precise manner. Reverbs and delays will modulate as they bounce off different surfaces, and we will often hear these spatial effects modulate when we are walking as we perceive them from a different space. Today's reverb and delay plugins allow you to hone in on a precise delay and reverb sound, which can leave your mix sounding flat and leave out the organic, real-world modulation that we are used to hearing. To add a more organic and real space, we can add modulation plugins to these reverb and delay send and return channels. Modulation plugins are great for adding in a more organic space as they introduce changes in the tone of your sound and in the stereo image. Any modulation plugin, such as flangers, choruses, frequency shifters, phasers, and auto panners, are great to use here. The key is to experiment and find out which ones work the best for the track that you are working on. In this example, we're going to use my 2 favorite modulation plugins on the delay and reverb sends. That is the chorus and the auto panner in Ableton. When applying these effects, we want to think subtle changes. Again, a little will go a long way here. Let's first have a listen to our reverbs that we have on our synth and piano progression. Here's the reverb. And then the delay. So let's go on over to our reverb send and return channel and add a chorus plugin and an auto panner. So let's go on over to our reverb return and send channel and add in a chorus and an auto panner. The chorus, we will keep the dry wet at around 20% here. And for the auto pan, we will keep the dry wet at around 18%, as we want to give the sense of movement but not create a distraction in the mix. Then let's copy on over our modulation plugins to our delay return channel and slightly change the settings. We will first adjust the modulation that is happening to be a bit more intense, and then dial back the dry wet to 18%. Then, on the auto panner, we will change the rate or frequency of the auto pan to be a bit faster and change the dry wet to 20%. Once again, experimenting is key here. Find out what settings and modulation plugins work best for your track. So now let's hear the effect that these modulation plugins have on our sound. Without our modulation effects, now with. Our overall mix sounds much more natural. You can hear there's a little bit more movement and dimension to the sound with these added effects, making our overall mix sound more organic. And to highlight the effect of all three tips, let's hear what our synth piano sounds like with all three of our tips applied. First, without. And now with. Our overall mix sounds much more natural, fuller, and gives us a much more organic mix down. So anytime that you want to add a more organic sound to your mixes, experiment with recording in your automation, adding in ambience beds, and adding modulation effects to your reverb and delay send and return channels. And now let's listen to our sample with linear automation, so just drawing in a straight line for the cutoff frequency.